Read this.
This is Matthew Palmer, and you're listening to the O-Face Wrestling Podcast. Please don't tell anyone I peed sitting down.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to O-Face Wrestling. This is your host JT, and today I'm joined by co-host Brianna, and I am joined by Matthew Palmer. So thanks for joining us today, Matt.
Hey guys, no problem. Hey.
Yeah. So Matt, we are definitely honored to have you on the show today. So me and Brianna, we both got 3 questions for you.
Okay.
So let's get to it. So I'm going to start, and it's the basic question you've probably been asked a million times, but I haven't heard it. So, and Bree hasn't heard, so we both want to hear. So just in general, what inspired you to become a professional wrestler?
So it's hard to say because it comes in different stages of my life. When I was 4, I was introduced to wrestling because it just came on TV. It happened to be I think it was a Bret Hart British Bulldog match or something like that. I was 4. I was mesmerized by it, loved it, and then just became a fan ever since. But then later on, high school and life gets to you. I ended up being an assistant manager at a Wendy's for a while. And just, the everyday life, just draining and stuff like that. And so I saw an advertisement for a local company called PCW, the blandest name ever, Professional Championship Wrestling. And they had a school that was run by Lance Archer or Lance Hoyt. I can't remember Vance or whatever his name is now in AEW. And I was like, man, I'm tired of being 20 years old, assistant manager at a Wendy's. There's supposed to be more to life than this. I'm going to go chase this dream before I die because, hey, I'm 5'8", vanilla midget, and might as well give it a shot. I'm not going to last very long, That turned in 15 years later. And so that's basically it. But also during high school, just in life, I was extremely shy, like a little bit of a stammer, just afraid to be around people, always angry. You know what I mean? So then a friend introduced me to theater. It's like, hey, you want to do some theater? I was like, yeah, why not? Then I became a huge theater nerd, and I was like, oh, I'm not as shy anymore. Screw it. I'm going to go see if I can do this dream. And I kind of did it. I still kind of wrestle. And that's it. That's what got me into wrestling,
Yeah, I definitely feel you there because, I'll be honest with you. Throughout high school, I was very similar. I was extremely shy. I don't want to go as far as say I was angry, but I was just, I had gotten bullied a lot in middle school, so I kind of was I just did not care to socialize with a lot of people, and it kind of still to this day, I kind of have a thing where when it comes to people, it takes a lot for me to really open up, so it's I kind of know where you're coming from with that. I wish when I was 20 years old, I would have thought maybe I should do something in professional wrestling, because luckily for me, there's actually a training facility 40 minutes away from me. So it's dang, I could have actually done something like that. But the fact that, you did actually take a, leap and, do that, that's really awesome. And so I know Brianna's question for you is kind of, similar to mine. So Brianna, do you want to share your question?
Yeah, so and to kind of come back from that, again, I can probably relate to the two of you in terms of I don't want to say I was necessarily a shy person, but I was definitely known as being kind of aloof. I would be fairly shy until I got to know you, but I wasn't really a loner, but I wasn't one of the popular kids. And to do you one better, Matt, you did theater in high school, and imagine you major in it in college. So
I did.
Did you?
I did.
That's awesome. Okay, so I was like, wow, everyone's
before I dropped out, I was like, I'm just gonna do the acting thing.
Yeah,
I did it while I was still wrestling for the first couple of years. I was part of this very, very amateur troupe to where we got this old box truck. It wasn't a U-Haul, but it was essentially for a moving company. And we would put our stuff in there, and we would go to various community theaters and nursing homes, just anything we could to do plays. And we'd find the cheapest plays we could. We'd direct ourselves. We'd build a little hammock from like the Luan materials, and I'd sleep in the back of the truck because we couldn't afford hotels and things like that. And like, it was like, I loved it. That was the coolest bohemian type lifestyle I ever
that
had.
That is cool. That's actually really cool. Like, I think I did that one summer. I didn't sleep in the van, but like we just kind of did like little skits and everything. We didn't get paid for it, but I'm glad that, you know, I've now met a fellow thespian.
Yeah.
So that's actually really cool. So I can understand that like shyness and you know, sometimes a little aggression and people saying, hey, you should do theater, like do the acting thing. And it feels like that's kind of like what there's a tie-in with the wrestling part. So I could definitely understand how someone in theater could get into wrestling. And so hearing your story, to go back on to JT's question in mind, because we kind of had the same question, but mine was more, in your opinion, was there like a specific moment, you know, in your career when you're starting out that you were kind of like, this is going to be something I'm going to do more as a job, as a career, rather than just as a hobby? Like, I feel like for a lot of people, you come into something and you have, you know, two choices. This can be something I do for fun or something I do for a paycheck. And paycheck in the sense of like, I want this to be a career and I want this to be my life.
Uh-huh.
And I was just interested to know if maybe there was like a moment where it tipped to the career rather than the hobby.
Well, it goes back and forth because you can try to make it a career all you want, but you're at the mercy of people hiring you. And so like I could give you all the examples of me busting my butt trying to get better at everything about wrestling and wanting to make this a career. But if I'm not getting work, then it becomes a hobby real quick, whether I want to or not. So there were moments where I was working 5-6 times a week. My first few years, I was going to every show, whether it was a church show or somewhere out in the middle of nowhere or a halfway decent show that actually gets production, a few thousand people. And so it's like, oh, there's moments where like, oh, I can do this. This is totally fine. They're all hiring me left and right. Mm-hmm. And then they don't. so like it can be like, oh, this is a great career. I got a chance. And then all those companies close down.
There's always like an audition.
Yeah, it's always an audition. There's always, no one ever has any money in wrestling. You know what I mean? Like the promoters, they're like, I can give you $30 and then you can try to sell as many shirts that you can. Basically, you're basically waiting tables. You get paid very low amount of money, and then you're hoping that they like you enough for your job that you have to get other people to support you. And so that's indie wrestling in a nutshell. It's like one day it's like, oh, I get paid $1,000 for a booking. Well, maybe. I mean, like that's always the goal. But if you think of it like it's a career at all times, then you got a chance of making it like a career. If you're always thinking like a hobby, I don't think you're ever going to make a career out of it. And so I always try to think of it like a career, like it's the show respect to it, because there's a lot of people's lives at risk every time you're in the ring. We are shortening our lifespan to begin with. And so do you want to shorten your lifespan, your health for a hobby, or do you want to do it for something that you hope to God one day somebody can pay you for it? So my mindset was always like a career. Even now, I'm slowing down, I'm getting older, health things are starting to come up because, it's life. And so like, I still have to think of it like a career. So like, it's like, oh, I'm just going to wrestle once every month or once every now and then. It's like, that's a hobby. But when you think of it like that, you have a tendency to pull back and not show as much respect to what you're doing in there. And so there wasn't a particular moment. It was just me always thinking, this is it. This is my life. This is what I want to do. I want to be paid for this. So I have to think like that.
So it's a mentality. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And that's not like the way you should always think. That's just what's in my head. Other people are probably like, oh, I just do it as a hobby and I'm just so great. People pay me a lot of money. I mean, that's cool for them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like that's something I never really thought about. Like, because I've always kind of wondered, but I know it's like none of my business, like how much like some of these indie wrestlers get paid. But then I never thought about like the whole like merchandise aspect. Like I know a lot of wrestlers, they do that. And and when you had mentioned, I'm thinking like, yeah, that's actually kind of true. Like, because when I went to an indie event like a few months ago, back before COVID happened, um it wasn't a lot of people there. And I know one of the wrestlers that were there, she was one of kind of like the upper tier, indie wrestlers, and she looked very upset. Like, and now I kind of understand why, because it's like, she's at this indie event, not a lot of people, you're not going to sell a lot of merchandise. But then when I saw her again a month later at a indie event, and it was booming there, and she had the biggest smile on her face, she looked like, she just won $1 million. Like, and it's like, yeah, because, these wrestlers, they're going out there, they're busting their butt. They may or may not be getting paid a lot, by the, promoter. So it's like, yes, they do really rely on, these merchandise being sold, which is like why I personally, every time I go to an indie event, I always support, my favorites. I will buy their 8x10s over and over. Obviously a different picture every time, but it's like, I definitely am really big on supporting the indies and trying to help them out, because, you got to appreciate, because like you mentioned, you may be booming for a year or two when it comes to getting promoted. And then, because you don't have that guaranteed contract with a company where you're getting paid regardless of what's going on. You rely on, if they want to book you, if these companies don't do well, they may, because you may have a company that really likes you, but if they go out of business, then guess what? You got to find another one that really likes you. So it's always tricky. And I've asked a few wrestlers, like, just like the challenges of actually getting bookings lists. Like, do they come to you? Do you go to them? And basically, from what I heard, it's kind of a little bit of both, sometimes. Yeah. So is, like, I know that it wasn't like a planned question of mine, but just like, kind of like, what are the challenges when it comes to getting bookings? Like, do you feel like that you have to reach out a lot, or do you kind of like wait for them?
It's weird, because not a whole lot of people know me. You know what I mean? I'm not, no one know, like, that's why it's weird when like, oh, hey, I'm a fan. That's insane. Can't believe somebody even saw my match. But I used to go out and try to get the bookings. And then I started like kind of getting the feel. It's like it's alphabet soup out here. There's always going to be a new place with a whole bunch of different initials representing wrestling. The goal is just to entertain people. So if I can just entertain people, I don't care what the letters are. I don't care how much they pay me. I know the money will come, because the promoter is not going to be the part where I get all my money. It's the fans. Like, it's serving tables. Like, you showed up, you saw that wrestler on a Monday night shift. No one's out there. And then you came back on a Friday night shift, and all the tables are filled. It's like, sweet, I get to pay rent this week. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. And so when you see a whole crowd, just know the guys in their back are like, oh, thank God, I can take all those head bumps, and I can risk concussions and injuries, but damn it, I could pay the electricity bill. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes the promoter will come to you because you did well in other jobs. It's like, hey, I got this role for you. I think you'd be great for it. I think you're a good fit here. And then other times I'll hit up these people because, hey, I'm tired of working for this company that's paying me $30. I hear you can raise it up to 75. You know what I mean? So like, so yeah, it's a give and take. It's always a hustle. Lately, I've stopped trying to reach out just because it's like, after 15 years, it's just like
even know you don't.
Exactly.
It's like at 15. It's like, do you think Gary Oldman acted for 15 years and then still had to keep like going and hitting up directors for casting, or do they like, hey, I think Gary Oldman would be great for Sirius Black. Cool, he's hired. It's like,
right.
And so like at some point you got to look at it going like, it's been 15 years. Either I am good enough for people to call me, or I'm not. And so I don't think I'm good enough for people to call me.
I don't think that's true. Yeah, I think you're selling yourself a little short here.
And maybe that's silly. I'm sure some other wrestler would hear this and argue that fact, but.
Well, I think also you have to consider that wrestling really it's so, there's so many companies, there's so many people. It's like and I'm not trying to, like, I guess, defend those people that are gonna call you back, but at the same time, I mean, like, where do you even start? Like, I don't even think it's a thing of talent. I think it's just like, you know, who's making the most noise right now, who's making the most controversy, who can be hired, like. And I think that kind of happens across the board of, like, you know, take it as if you're a YouTuber or something. Like, it's hard because you have that barrier of entry. It's like you got all the top folks that are making all the content, getting all the views. If you're kind of just, you're good at what you do, but it's like, where do you fit in all the noise? You know, I think it may not even be a wrestling thing. And, you know, I know some really talented wrestlers and people that, like, I rarely see on TV signed with big companies. And, you know, it's just kind of like, if there are so many people that are signed with, you know, all these big companies that I think are so talented, like, I can only imagine how many are, you know, in the indie scene or who do it, like, as a hobby, who probably are amazing at it. And it's just, yeah, I don't know maybe where the disconnect is, you know. So it's just something that I, you know, I was thinking about when you're talking about it. It's that, you know, it's not like it's kind of like a 15-man show and they're just not calling back the 14th guy. It's like you're up against, like, just thousands and thousands of people, and it's not, I don't even think it's a matter of talent. I think, you know, in terms of what I've seen of you, talented, but there's so many people that are just not getting the opportunity. And I think that's, like, a totally different conversation to have, like, that would probably take us forever. But
Yeah, like, it's a philosophy subject, and, like, there's never a definitive answer on that kind of stuff. I've always told people, like, because my wife and I run a training school, or at least it's halted right now because of COVID. But, like, I try to tell them it's about entertainment. It's like, if you can't draw a reaction from the crowd, then it means nothing.
yeah.
It's the difference between the Avengers movies and just a regular movie. You can do all the cool moves in the world, but they only remember specific moments that made them jump out of their seats in a setting where you're supposed to be quiet and people are jumping out of their seats. And it's not because they did a cool move or it's because they found their little niche in that movie and people were drawn to it. It's like Captain America picking up a hammer. It's not because he did a shooting star press or he did anything like that. It's because he built up that moment. He picked it up and people lost their minds. If you can find your place in your wrestling company or wherever company where you can make that moment for you, then they'll bring it back. And if they don't bring it back, then they're terrible casting directors. And then somebody else will do it. I mean, that's the way I've always seen it. So as long as you can draw a reaction from the crowd, even if it's a dead silence. There's a difference between dead silence because you're bored and dead silence because you're speechless.
Yeah.
Those reactions from a trained wrestler, when you hear it, you're like, I got him. I got him. And so even if you could do that in your 30-second, oh, bye, Bree. Even if you can do that in your 30-second spot that you have on the show, then you're a great character actor. Yeah, you're not the lead of the movie, but you made that movie so much better. And a smart booker, a smart casting director would see that going like, I need him. And what he did in 30 seconds to make me feel something, that crowd feels, I need him for the show. And that's the way it should be run. However, when you start looking at numbers and analytics, you want, well, I feel like I'm echoing. Sorry. You want people that will just always be celebrities. You want everyone to be a star, everyone. And then boom, 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 they're shoving everything in your face. Look at all these amazing people. And it's the beautiful character actors that can be in there. You miss all the supporting cast that can make your show so much better. And that doesn't mean you're a jobber. That doesn't mean you're enhancement talent. That means that you are able to draw an emotion that other people can't get. Because this is theater. The wrestling ring is the stage. It's a theater and a round. And so when you're acting, you can do the, a Lie of the Mind or a Midsummer Night's Dream. It doesn't matter if they're small. You'll get more work if you're good at your role. And so a lot of people forget that. And I feel like I went on a tangent, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
didn't
I
answer the question.
I agree 100%. Like, and again, like to your point, I don't think it's talent. Sometimes you can be really talented, and it's just the way of the world where things are, who you are, what you look like. So I think there's so many factors. It would just kind of be, it would probably be depressing to kind of have to think about like, what is it that I don't have? What is it that I need to have? And like have to answer those questions that have so many different answers depending on who you ask. And so
I mean,
totally.
it's all great advice from anyone. You just got to figure out which one applies to you. Like, there's no textbook, like there's no accredited wrestling school. It's just a bunch of people who did the job and are now trying to train you. It's like, this is what I did, this is what I did right, this is what I did wrong. Go out there and good luck. I taught you how to do the tango. Now go tango with everyone in the world.
Yeah, so like I feel like when you were talking about all it, it's kind of like at the end of the day, it's being able to tell a story in the ring. Like you can, like you said, you could be the best wrestler in the world, but you need to be able to, make the crowd feel like they're watching like a good story, and that's what really draws the crowd into the match. Like we want to like kind of like I'll use like Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels during that retirement match. That was a good story. Like it was the whole older wrestler who still thought he had it, and Shawn Michaels is, well, they're basically, or it was Vince McMahon was kind of basically saying, hey, like, no, like, you're done, like, we need to put you down. And it's just like the story at the end of the day is like, one of the most important factors, and some people don't realize that. But when you're invested into the storyline, and when a wrestler can do that with the crowd, that's what, draws the crowd, and that's what, really gets wrestlers over. Because, like I said, when it comes to wrestling, like she mentioned, when I got into the indie wrestling, later in 2019, I never knew how many companies they were. I never knew how many indie wrestlers are. The wrestling industry is huge. And if you're just a straight like WWE fan, you really don't know outside of WWE and how just big this industry is and how many people are there out there to do it. You need to be able to have that thing about you that makes you makes you stand out.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things is your character, your storytelling, and all of that. So just that is just one of the most important things. And as a fan, like that's what I look for, like when it comes to what draws me to a wrestler, it's the story and how they draw me personally, like too, like and it goes both ways too. For me, like it also goes, my experiences meeting the wrestlers and interacting with them, when I went to a lot of my indie events and I met these wrestlers too, and just seeing them and just interacting with them too, and how they interact with you kind of helps them draw you to them and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's just my experiences and what kind of helped me get drawn to the wrestlers as well. So
Good point.
So you asked the last question, right, Bree?
I did. So
okay. So now for my
more, you don't have to just do 3. If you're worried about me, that's as many as you want. I don't care.
Okay, yeah, we just didn't want to. We didn't know how much time you had. We wanted to make sure that
no,
we got 3 key questions. So for my next question I have for you now, this is a non-wrestling related question. So what about you that's non-wrestling related that you would want people to know about you? That's something that you're very passionate about outside of theater, because I know we already talked about that.
Well, honestly, nothing. You know what I mean? Like I can tell people, and this is stuff that anybody that watches a stream or knows. Oh, I love tabletop gaming. I love D&D. I like to paint my minis every now and then. And that's it. Like the only thing I want anybody to know about me is the wrestling character I present. Because it's not me turned up to 11. It never is. Because this is my private life. I don't want you talking to me in my private life. I don't want to interrupt you in your private life. I just want to entertain you the best I can and then come home and relax. So like I don't need to tell people any like, look how great I am at this other thing. It's like, no, I want to entertain you. That's it, man. That's it. So there's nothing interesting about me that makes me exceptional. I'm just a regular guy trying to be a thespian still. So that's all it is. So like there's nothing interesting about my personal life, and I kind of like that. So like,
I mean, I'll be honest. I think the D&D thing's actually kind of interesting. That's something I've always been wanting to get into, but unfortunately, like I don't have any like friends who are like a geek like I am. So it's like I never had the opportunity to learn it. Like, how challenging is it to learn that for the first time?
it's not. It's just improv, honestly. I mean, somebody could hand you the sheet. This is your character. These are your guidelines, and here's a bunch of math. Ignore the math. Just look at the general directions that you're given. Okay, there's your bonds, your flaws, and just embrace them and make them a character. And you can choose those things. So like if I choose a character who's like a goody two shoes paladin, but his flaw is that he always has to be in charge, then I could easily become the bad guy for a moment and still be human and not be evil. Like that's a fun thing to do. And if you role play it out, it's great. It's a couple hours of improv, and in your head there's some dragons flying around. So what? You know what I mean? So that's all it is. And then like there's some math. Who cares? I mean, you roll some dice, you add some stuff up. That always intimidates people. It's like ignore that. It's about the improv. It's about creating a scene with a group of people who aren't afraid to not be themselves for a minute. And usually people get self-conscious because there'll be one or two people who don't want to delve that deep into it, but they're the people that should be, embarrassing themselves. You can't embrace a new character. You can't try a little bit. And so it's a lot easier than people think. You just pick it up and you just act. Even if it's bad, you just act.
It seems like there's a lot of imagination into it, because I would always see scenes from like The Big Bang Theory and how they would get into it and all that kind of stuff. Like, this seems so fun, but for whatever reason, I thought it just seemed like a very complicated game, which always kind of discouraged me on learning it too, because I get frustrated very easily when it comes to learning new things.
Yeah, it can be complicated if you are a stickler about sticking to the rules as strict as possible. But like any game, I mean, it's a game. Have fun with it. Make up your own rules. Who cares? Just have fun with it. Just embrace the art of improv is all it is. That's all any tabletop role-playing game is. It's role-playing. So.
Right. I remember before, the whole COVID thing, I was getting some people together so we could play Hornbringer. And Hornbringer is a tabletop game that's kind of like D&D. It's one of those, you paint, you have like your minis, you can paint them, create them however you want to. You get like a whole sheet. You explain, your flaws, your perks. You would be like, it's like, here's a whole template on how to create your own character, and you follow the Hornbringer story. And we were really, and I was actually like getting into it. They had like a Kickstarter online, and it's, and I'm watching people play it. It's definitely that. It's definitely who can you get together with who isn't afraid to be themselves, and who can be silly, who can just get into the moment. It's very it's improv, it's theater, like Matt said. I mean, that's exactly what it is. If you can find like a couple of people that are not afraid to use their imagination and play along and feed off of each other and work off of each other, it looks really fun, and it looks very engaging, and does help you think critically on your feet. What's my next move based off of what the person before me or the person after me does. So hopefully when things kind of die down, I'll be able to kind of get into that. D&D was also like one of those things I was like, I probably would really enjoy this if I had enough friends that were like interested in doing it, that lived it fairly close to me. And I'm actually friends with one guy who's into that. And so, I'm always asking him like, how do I get started? And who like who do you play with? What conventions do you go to? Because as a big Magic the Gathering player, I was like going to a lot of card shops and doing that same thing. And I see you smiling because you know what I'm talking about.
Well,
I used
I'm
to play
smiling
that.
because a friend of mine who is my current DM tried to teach me Magic the Gathering, and I didn't stick with it long enough to remember it. So every time I play, I feel like I'm relearning it. It's like, oh, this is cool. I'm just getting wiped out. I was like, oh, it's great. I don't know what's happening.
It's definitely
land.
something you need to. Yeah, and they come out with new packs all the time, so it's like it changes up the game, and it's like any other like video game that you play. That's like a multiplayer or like online world. Once a new patch comes out or a new, something, gets nerfed or buffed, it kind of changes the whole aspect of how you play. So that's basically Magic.
Oh, I play it all the time, and by all the time I mean once every month. And by that time the month comes back around, I'm still asking my buddy Steven. I was like, all right, what can I? Here's my cards. What can I do? He's like, okay, he's basically playing himself, and I'm just this dummy holding a bunch of cards. Like, can I lay down this 12-12 thing? It's like, no, you don't have enough mana. It's like, what the hell's mana? It's like the land. It's like,
it's how you do your spells. It's not like health.
That's right. I forgot.
The other one. It's the blue one. Your health is the red one.
Wow, I feel so lost here because I know nothing about this. See, Bree, we need to get the O-Face squad in Zoom, and we need to put so like virtual playing video games and all that kind of stuff is like now a thing on Zoom. So we need they're all willing to do that.
That's something that I think we would probably do well with the if you had like an O-Face gaming podcast where we live stream stuff like that, like that'd be something I would be definitely interested in because
you're gonna run that section of the O-Face thing because I already got enough on my table with the wrestling part.
Good.
Yeah.
You should totally play games.
Do you have a favorite video game, Matt? We're on the topic.
I don't know. I have one that I play more than any other, but I don't know if it's my favorite as much as it's just like, here's a quick game, but it's like Civilization Revolution. And it's just the console version of the streamlined version of Civilization. And my wife got it for me back in, I don't know, I think 2014, 2015 when she was in Florida and I was still in Texas. And for a few months, I was like, here, play this game. And so I just play it all the time. But as far as like favorite games, probably Fallout New Vegas is one of my favorite games. I love the open world. I wish they'd redo it so it would feel like a more lived-in world, but like all the options you get and like the way society can be changed on a whim. I really liked it. I liked a lot of the Fallout games, like Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4 are basically the ones I like the most. I love Red Dead Redemption 2. That's great. Too. I love playing a game where it doesn't force you, but it makes you take time to appreciate that lifestyle because it's more like a role-playing game than sorry, my cat's scratching my leg. That really is. I like those. I just got done playing Last of Us 2, and I feel like it's one of the most beautiful games I've ever played. Didn't really care for the direction of the game, the way it went, but as far as like watching creators choose a radical idea and going with it and following through, I appreciated it. And I was like, they didn't water anything down. They just like, this is the direction we're going, like it or not. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. I like playing those kind of games. That was fun. So yeah, I don't have a definite favorite, but I lean towards New Vegas and Civilization Revolution.
Cool. That's really interesting to know. If you really like those games, I would make a suggestion for the Outer Worlds.
Oh, I played it. I liked Outer Worlds.
I did. Yeah. I love that game so much. And I love Red Dead too.
It was the first person viewer. I didn't like the first person because it gives you all these options to like change your stuff.
That's true.
Look cool. It was the same with Far Cry 5. It gives you all these options to like wear these things and look this way, but you never see what your character looks like. So what's
That's true. That is true.
So like that was a little irritating. So I didn't really care for it as much as I would the other games. The other was it Obsidian that we made?
Yeah, that was Obsidian.
Yeah. in New Vegas.
But hopefully they're coming out with DLC this year. Just hope and pray. Maybe that'll be something that they add. I know a lot of people had that same kind of complaint about that game. So yeah.
Yeah.
I've always had a hard time getting into like open world games because they're usually very long, and I'm very impatient. So I typically prefer the games that are very short. Like I did put in well over 100 hours on Fallout 3 back when I was in high school, but when I did get Fallout New Vegas, and I just did not play a lot of it. I just just that I had a job at the time. I just didn't have the time, and but I know like for me, like the most recent game I was really playing a lot was Resident Evil 3, the remake. You could beat that game in an hour and a half, so that was like perfect for me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Hour and a half?
I do want to get The Last of Us. I think I'm buying that tonight since I'm, got paid. I've been hearing so many negative things about it though. I'm kind of getting worried. It's been 7 years or something, like 6 or 7 years since the first one came out. So it has a lot of high expectations, but the graphics and all, it looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that game came out in when the first one came out. I can't remember.
It was like 2012, wasn't it?
It was June
That's what I was
2013.
13. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
And like I won't go with my critiques on or deeper with my critiques on the game. I mean, give it your own thought, because like with any art platform, people are going to bitch and moan about it, but maybe you like that one specific movie. Maybe that's your guilty pleasure. Maybe that's your game.
Mm-hmm.
So give it a shot. Yeah, you lose some money, but I mean, you lose money on everything trying it out for the first time. So
Exactly. I mean, people bashed Resident Evil 6, and I actually loved it. So, I mean, I have hope that I will like it. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, just because, like you said, just because someone doesn't like it doesn't mean I, feel the same. We all have our different opinions on it. So
yeah,
I have a feeling I'll like it. I was expecting to hear 10 out of 10 ratings. This is the best game of the year and all that stuff. And I'm just hearing, but at the same time, we are in that era where people like to complain a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to take it seriously. So we'll just have to see where it goes.
How many popular TV shows and movies and games that get those stellar ratings that you end up hating? So I love Game of Thrones. It was one of my favorite shows of all time. And then, the longer it went on, the more I started hating it. I was like, this is my favorite show, and I started hating it. And it still is considered one of the most rated shows of all time. All this money.
Yeah.
That was a great show.
People hate it,
I didn't hate the ending, but I felt like it was just rushed. He went from normal to the Mad Queen in like 2 episodes. So it was kind of like
that's always the biggest problem people have, is that even I actually called that years prior when my wife was talking about, because she's a huge Dany Targaryen fan. I'm like, screw her, it's Stannis Baratheon all the way. Let's go Stannis. He burned his daughter. Who cares? Just to be sarcastic. He didn't do it in the books, so he's fine in my
Right.
And like I understand those character choices, and I understand like the time frame maybe didn't match up. But at the same time, and this is crude saying, don't know any other way of saying it, like just the sheer balls that the creators had to do to be like, we're doing this. People are going to hate it. F them. I mean, we got to choose a direction, right?
Right.
1 million characters. They can't all be alive. They can't all be heroes. And so, like, we all loved Anakin Skywalker when he was a kid. Well, we loved Anakin Skywalker when he was a kid. He's going to be Darth Vader. We knew that. What happens if you didn't know the outcome beforehand and you got to watch that kid grow up to be Darth Vader? So you got to see that Dany. You got to see her grow up and be the Mad Queen. We had all of our hopes in you. What did you do? Well, we gave a single person a lot of power. Same thing that happens in real life. You give them a lot of power and they couldn't handle it. Oh, well, this guy had a better story. He should be king. It doesn't make sense that Bran's king. It's like, yeah, that's politics, man. So like, it wasn't, they forgot the fantasy element. They made it very realistic and people hated that. But at the same time, you look at that going like, yeah, they made choices. They made their choices and it reflects their society. I mean, their whole society was crap. So it makes sense. I just didn't like it,
Right. And that's your truth. You're allowed to not like things. People are allowed to as a majority not like the direction that something has gone. You know, and like the same thing was with the Star Wars. You know, the last three. Like, you know, I live in a household with a man that's like vehemently hating those three movies. Me personally, I don't necessarily hate The Last Jedi. I did not hate Rise of Skywalker. Were they in my top three? Absolutely not. But you know, things have to end at some point, and I think that's also a part of why people sometimes don't like things when, you know, when things have to come to an end and it's not the way they thought it was going to be, and this is how I saw it in my mind. It's like they set expectations for things, but they're not the director, they're not the writer. They can't necessarily say, you know. And then, you know, also the nostalgia part of it. Like, I realize I've lived in like a decade where like so much media has been started and ended, like Red Dead Redemption 2, and like the end of the Star Wars thing. Like, a lot of stuff came to end in this year, and I think, you know, when you put nostalgia in the mix of things where people remember, oh, you know, this was how the Star Wars movies were before, and now they're this way, and I'm not used to it, so I don't like it. Yeah. So there's a lot of different aspects to think about. And
I've always considered Star Wars my guilty pleasure. It seems weird to people that you would say Star Wars is a guilty pleasure, but if you look at it objectively, it's not great. I mean, go and watch every movie. Like, they make you feel these things, and it gets away with being these half-ass acting moments and shit like that. It's just that they were the first. They were the first true epic of that level, and so people loved them. But, like, the acting wasn't that great. I mean, seriously, go back and watch every Anakin Skywalker character. Every Mark Hamill wasn't great yet. He was still cutting his teeth. Like, he was... I wish
he was like 20. He was like in his early 20s.
Yeah, Harrison Ford was just the same character he was in American Graffiti. I mean, he was still learning how to act. They're still new, and so like you look at it going like, this isn't great, but it's got a whole bunch of special effects and a bunch of stuff that's cool. It's got spaceships. Didn't have that 10 years prior. You know what I mean? You could see the fish line on the Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah.
So like that, it gets away with a lot of stuff like that. And so when people complain like, oh, they ruined Star Wars, it's like, I don't know, man. It's a space opera to begin with about one specific family when there's literally trillions of people in the universe and we're focusing on these three guys. I mean, so like,
yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. And this is coming from someone that like, I have only recently in the last month watched all of the Star Wars. Like, I had not watched them before. You know, I finished, I did this weird thing where I started with The Force Awakens. I saw The Last Jedi, and then I saw Rise of Skywalker. And then I was like, hey, we have Disney Plus now. Let me go, like, watch, you know, the old ones to see, like, what the big, you know, problem is. What's the deal? Why do people hate, like, the new ones so much? And to be honest, I, like, when watching them, I'm just kind of like, you guys are kind of upset about some of the things that, like, it's kind of hypocritical, and it's coming from someone that doesn't have that nostalgia thing in it. I'm, like, watching this objectively, and I'm thinking, you guys are mad at Rey because Rey was handed everything. But I'm like, Anakin kind of was handed a lot, too, in a lot of ways, and no one really is upset with that. Like, this kid's just, he was born great and became evil. That's the only real difference. It's like Rey was kind of like born good and was given everything. People hate her. So it's like, there's part of me that I think about stuff like that, and I'm just like, there's no nostalgia clouding it. So I'm like watching things and I'm just like, Star Wars is good, but I don't think it's like the best thing I've ever seen. The lore for me is the most interesting part of it. But for me, that's all how I've been for everything. I like the lore of anything more than I like the actual medium I'm like digesting at the time.
I agree. Like, I would, if I watch YouTube videos, which I do frequently now, It's always like, oh, here's the lore of Fallout. Here's the lore of Star Wars. That seems so interesting, trying to create a world that feels lived in more than it does following the narrative of these specific characters to me, because the potential's there. We enjoy the potential of the first movies. That's why sequels always fail, regardless if they're great. And I say fail, I mean critically, not like monetarily. It's because we see the potential of the first season of True Blood. And we're like, this is great. And then they make a decision that we're going to go in this direction. And people are like, oh, no, you could have gone this direction. It would have been great. And that's the problem you face, is that you have to go a direction. You see all that potential get wasted, and you have to accept it. You know, that's the problem a lot of people have. They see the first part of anything and like, this is going to be insane. This is going to be incredible. Oh, they're just going to give this girl all the powers. Okay, well, you can see that as a negative, or you can see that as like, they're going to give all this girl the power. Let's fucking see what's going to happen, you know, rather than like go with an open mind. And that's the problem a lot of consumers have in the entertainment world, is that they cannot go into an open mind, because I want you to follow my idea I have in my head. Tell me what that idea is. I don't know, but I want you to this thing. I can't do that, buddy. So I got to come up with the idea in my head, because I created the damn thing. So here's the direction I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, someone's potential, you know, one person's trash is another potential, because like people can, you know, you see this on Reddit all the time where people are like, you know, I like this idea. This is how I feel like this idea should go for this show. And someone's like, no, that's trash. Here's how we could do it. And it makes sense. And like, you can't, you know, we're going round robin at this point, but like, you know, you can't please everybody. So you got to go in one direction. And just hope that that's not going to like kill the franchise or hurt you, hurt your career. So.
Yeah. That's entertainment. That's the entertainment industry right there.
Right.
You hope your creative outlets don't ruin you. So we went on a tangent about. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We did. We're sorry, JC.
No, it's fine. We're geeking out. I love it. I you know, and Bree, you were supposed to text me and talk to me about Star Wars when you watched them all. So I'm kind of disappointed in you now.
We can talk. We can talk about it. We can talk about it now. I need to rewatch Force Awakens. I can't remember what happened in there. But
I want to start rewatching them too. Like, I remember enjoying the original 3, which was what, 4 through 6, growing up. And I tried rewatching them in high school, and I just couldn't get into it. This is after episodes 1 through 3 came out. I want to watch the originals again. I could not get into them to save my life. Episodes 1 through 3 were my all-time favorite. I feel like they were the most action-packed of the trilogy, and that's what I like. I love action. And, of course, you know, the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan, and I forgot the other guy's name.
Qui-Gon?
Yeah, that was, like, my all-time favorite.
Well, shame that I know that. I don't know why I can't remember his name for some reason.
Yeah, I'm horrible with names, but yeah, like the 1 through 3 is my all-time favorite. I love them. I really enjoyed the most recent trilogy as well. And I thought the ending was actually pretty interesting. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but I did actually like the whole idea. I think Palpatine, I think that's his name, came back. Yeah, I thought that was actually a really interesting, you know, idea. A lot of people, I didn't really see many theories about it, you know. So I thought that was a really cool one. Like, how did you all feel about him, you know, coming back?
I thought it was okay. I mean, you're told through multiple episodes that Anakin Skywalker is going to be the chosen one. He's going to bring balance, and you're told you already know he's the bad guy, right? He's one of the most iconic bad guys ever. So you have this heel that you already are saying he's the bad guy. Now I'm going to show you as the babyface kid and watch his turn. And so like that hits home, but when you bring back the original bad guy, it sacrifices his turn back into a good person for at least a moment. And like he brought balance to the Force. He killed off the bad guy, sacrificed himself, and a small amount of redemption. He accomplished it. So when you bring back the original bad guy, you kind of ruin that story arc. But you still have the potential to use him to still bring balance. It could be like, well, that was just the second chapter. That wasn't the ending. This is the ending here. Him as the Force Ghost, or him as this, and this is that. And I think they missed the ball with that when they brought Palpatine back. I feel like I would have enjoyed a Kylo Ren adopting a more fanatic take and just embracing the evil rather than having him turn and be the goody two-shoes with this girl. And I feel like if you don't have, because Luke Skywalker is a boring character. Go watch the first couple of episodes, or episode 4 and 5. He's a boring character, but we love him because he's fighting this true evil in Darth Vader and Palpatine. He's a regular guy. He's like me, just a boring regular dude. But this evil here is so powerful that you're like, I don't care who the good guy is. I am cheering for him.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that at the other end because you have a zombie lich Palpatine come back for the dead, and you're like, well, I already saw him get his ass kicked. He's not that big of a threat. I saw this half robot cyborg 80-year-old man throw him off a balcony. So like, I don't care. And so like, oh, now Rey's gonna fight him. All right. Well, I would rather watch Kylo Ren beat the hell out of everyone and slowly just go crazier and crazier and crazier. What happens in D&D, you have these different alignments. It's like lawful evil, neutral evil, chaotic evil. Palpatine's like lawful evil. He runs everything to like the letter. You need everything organized like this. He's the true bad. What happens when it's somebody who's so chaotic, insane, in charge of everything? You don't see that. But instead of embracing Kylo Ren as the bad guy and coming into his own, we kind of use him as a way of showing how strong Rey is off the bat. She ends up beating his ass early on. They end up talking, and now he joins her side. And I was like, that's great. We still need that big bad that it doesn't matter if I hate Rey. I love her in comparison to this person. And when they brought back Palpatine, they didn't do that. They didn't create a big bad. They thought they were bringing back a bad guy, but it's like, oh, you brought back the Big Show. And I was like, that's great, but I've seen Big Show get his ass kicked. It's not.
Right.
I've seen him lose to Rey Mysterio. I've seen him lose to these people. So that's nothing. If they brought back The Undertaker in the height of his WrestleMania streak, that's different. No one's beat this guy. So when they beat him, it's like, holy crap. That would have been awesome to me.
I agree 100%. That's like the same point that I tried to make to a couple people who were like, I'm going to use a wrestling example because it's like the most recent one I could think of, but with Bray Wyatt's character, with The Fiend, I was always like, it really doesn't matter if he has the belt or not. It really doesn't matter if he, if you think that he shouldn't have it right now or he should have it right now. The fact is, you built him up to be this like unbeatable force, and it kind of takes away from like the mystery of him if I'm seeing him lose to everybody. Like for me, it kind of takes away it takes away that thing of like, okay, I've seen you get your butt kicked now at this point. Like your mystery, this crazy fiend supernatural character kind of like loses that for me.
Yeah.
When trying to explain to people that like, hey, oh, he didn't need to fight for the belt, he didn't need to have a match or anything, and I'm just like, well, the only way he's going to establish that he's this awesome character that I should invest in is if he's out there kicking tail and winning, because then that kind of, it continues to build that momentum of like, he can't be beat, who can beat him? And then it brings that up for interpretation among the fans of like, who would you put him against? Who would you put this unbeatable, unnatural force against?
And that's one of the main differences between wrestling and any other form of storytelling is there is no end.
Right.
Wrestling's been around since forever, and then when you start making sports entertainment, this fictionalized storytelling in the ring, you create this. Let's say you create Darth Vader in the wrestling world. Mm-hmm. He has to lose eventually. When do you pull the trigger? Well, I mean, he's going to be Darth Vader for the next 4 years. We're going to have all these different shows, and eventually this guy's going to come back out of nowhere and beat him. Oh, I don't want that guy. I want this guy. Oh, don't beat him yet. We'll do this. He's got to end sometime. And so, like, the problem is the actor who's playing that character still has to work and support himself, and this is his line of work.
Right.
And so it's not like here's 9 hours of movies. Here's the beginning, here's the end. Oh, I love this character. Well, that guy still he's not collecting millions of dollars on royalties from that. He still has to go and play that character. So now he's got to either reinvent himself, which is hard to do because in wrestling, you're automatically typecast, unlike other shows where like you can get typecast, but you can kind of break away. To break away from a typecast character, your next character has to be so great that becomes your typecast. And then you have to come up with another one else. So like that's always so hard. And so you have the Fiend. The Fiend has to lose eventually. Right. What hero is going to stop him? Charlotte Flair has to lose eventually. What hero is going to stop her? Okay, when the hero stops her, what do? We can't just fire Charlotte Flair. She knocked that role out of the park. So we got to do something else. And so that's always the problem with wrestling that I think a lot of people forget is that you have to look at it like it's a storybook. And like, here's the beginning, here's the end. I'm sorry the ending happened at Extreme Rules. I know you wanted it at WrestleMania. But the story, I couldn't spread, and so I had to choose a direction. Well, now you ruined the Fiend. He was going to get ruined. He's a bad guy. He's made to be beaten. Somebody has to beat him. Oh, why'd you have this guy beat him? Somebody had to beat him, man. Somebody had to beat him. The same when Brock Lesnar lost to Goldberg in like a minute and a half, I consider that entire storyline one of the best storylines I've done in a couple decades. And I remember the love when he beat Brock Lesnar in 90 seconds. And the immediate reaction was the reaction people should get. That jumping up and down like, oh my God, what did I just watch? That's insane. And then you stop and think about it too long and you're like, oh, they ruined Lesnar. Oh, they did this. It's like, did they? I mean, serious, did they? He lost. He's lost a million times before. You didn't see the bitch and moan when he first started his wrestling he lost all those matches in a couple years to Angle and Big Show. No one cared. But now he gets built up as this dominant force and you're upset that it's over.
Right.
A lot of fans, they don't understand their own feelings. And so like they're just upset. And so rather than taking that heat and that anger and putting it on a particular person or character, they just attack the industry or the writer or the people that are booking it. And it was like, I'm sorry you're upset that Star Wars ended. Or I'm sorry you're upset that the Fallout series ended. Or I'm sorry you're upset this character ended. But it had to.
Right.
It literally had to. They're human beings. They're going to age out of the roles. They're going to get hurt. And I'm sorry, but every now and then people get tired of the same crap, so they have to lose. So that's the problem with fans when consumers in the entertainment industry is that they don't understand that about wrestling. They have to lose eventually. They have to do their hardest to build them back up so that they can lose again. And a lot of people don't want to accept that. They rather just say, oh, F WWE, F AEW. They don't know what they're doing. They do. You just hate the fact that you have to accept loss now.
Yeah.
Grieving, essentially, in a low level of grieving.
And it wasn't the way they wanted it to happen, but kind of like going back to like the whole, people losing it and kind of coming back from it. Like I like to use Bray Wyatt as a perfect example. When he came to, the main roster, he was the beast. He was the top bad guy. Guess what? He lost to John Cena. In time, he eventually evolved into the Fiend. He became even a bigger, badder, bad guy for, everyone to overcome. And yeah, he did end up losing. I know a lot of people weren't happy about him losing the Goldberg very quickly. I think it was that Fastlane. But guess what? He came back, and then they did that whole kind of like redemption storyline with John Cena. So now he's kind of like the big bad guy again because he came back even badder, and they went back to a previously storyline that actually put him down and kind of moved him back up. So it is all about evolving and just kind of changing your character because, yeah, like you said, you can't win all the time. If you do, fans will get tired of it. Brock Lesnar is not going to win every time. And, when he does, people get mad. But then, like you mentioned, he lost and people got mad. So, the wrestling fans are very interested in, in what they want. It's just people, and that's the thing I will bring up with WWE. People don't realize that WWE has the largest fan base in the whole entire world when it comes to wrestling, and there's so many different fans who all want something different. You cannot cater to any individual person. It's impossible. You could do that with AEW because guess what? All of their fans are the hardcore fan base who want the same thing. WWE has, the kids, they have, women, men, all different ages, everything. So it's a little bit harder to do that. So it's a lot more complicated. And like you said, people sit there and say, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They're out of touch. But guess what? They do know what they're doing. It's not as easy as you think it is behind, the doors. And that's the thing is people think they know what goes on backstage and they really don't.
Yeah,
That's true.
I think a lot of wrestlers and a lot of fans, they for wrestling, they think that their character or their success in wrestling defines who they are as a human being. And that's why I've always hated people who say, oh, just your character should be yourself turned up to 11. It's like, I disagree. Your character is needed to dictate a good show. It's like, you don't want me turned up to 11. What, you want me to go out there and play D&D more so? There's nothing entertaining about it. But at the same time, Daniel Day-Lewis may be one of the most entertaining and greatest actors still alive. But Daniel Day-Lewis turned up to 11 is a cobbler. He's a shoemaker at home. He lives a private life. And so it's the same thing. Be the actor. Be the character. So if a certain success in wrestling dictates your happiness and who you are as a person, I say go seek therapy because this is not what that is. This is your job. This is no different than you going onto a play and playing Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. You are not the bad guy in real life. You are not Gaston turned up to 11. You're not some misogynistic jerk. You're just really good at playing that role. And I think a lot of people forget that about wrestling, fans and entertainers. Like, so they see, oh, they're burying, I'm just going to pull it, Liv Morgan. Oh, they're burying Liv Morgan. So she's playing a role. That Liv Morgan is a character. That is not who she is. They're not going up and kicking her real name, the actual person, down and out, or they're down, Oh no, I'm losing all these matches. They're treating me like crap. And it's like, no, the character. And maybe some of that's true backstage or whatever. You can always hear about the rumors. But in essence, you're just playing a character, and maybe they lose a lot. Maybe they look stupid out in the ring. That doesn't mean you as a person are stupid. That doesn't mean the company sees this person as stupid and they're just playing a role. Somebody has to be the victim in all these horror movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that these people are pathetic losers that get beat up by a guy in a hockey mask and murdered in a second. That's wrestling. And a lot of people forget that in wrestling. I keep saying wrestling over and over. I'm sorry. But that's what I know. That's any entertainment industry, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. I think that's one thing that we, people have lost sight of is that at the end of the day, these people go home and they're not Sasha Banks. They're not, Brock Lesnar. They're not Seth Rollins. Like, they go home and they're different people. Seth is not Seth when he leaves WWE. He's Kobe. And, like, Kobe may be, like, the nicest person in the world, but you got 15 different people on Twitter that believe that this man in real life is an asshole. And, I think, and I can only imagine how hard that can kind of be on people to see you do something in the ring or in the public eye because you are a famous person or you're married to someone who's famous and something comes up, whether good or bad, and these people have, they've decided you are this person because of what we saw on social media, on TV, on Twitter, on YouTube, what have you. And it's like, I can only imagine how hard that is. Like, it can be hard because I can only imagine if I was in that situation, finding myself second guessing myself, like, am I really bad in the ring? And, I made a really offhand joke. Am I really am I really homophobic like this person said, or am I really racist like this person said? Is my significant other racist because I let them say or do, something that didn't mean a lot, or to my mind meant something, but to the world it meant something. So now I'm a terrible person, all because of, one incident that they see. So, I feel like it probably does, to your point, a disservice to yourself to kind of embody what people think you are.
Yeah. And it's like if the Hollywood industry, while you're contracted to play, let's say, Iron Man, that Robert Downey Jr. has to be Tony Stark at all times.
Yeah.
And so that's weird, right? If you had to see Robert Downey Jr. just be Tony Stark in public until he's done with the Avengers, that's weird, right? But we expect it in wrestling. And so that's also weird. Like, you can criticize wrestling for being fake, staged, choreographed, but when it comes to the characters, no, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think
you can't pick and choose what's real and what's fake. You don't get to mock the part that's shortening my lifespan and then expect me to actually be this real evil character in real life. And so it's all fake. It's all choreographed. It's all planned. I do not understand why that is a negative to be seen like that. If you can suspend your belief or disbelief for a couple hours to go spend all this money to watch a Marvel movie, why can't you do it for a couple hours for $10 at a local wrestling show and not think that these people are really evil?
Yeah, a theory is that it's a little bit of a juxtaposition, right? Because you say suspend your disbelief. This is all real. These are how these people are. But then on the other side, you're like, you do have to, you understand these people. They know they're real people, and so it's different. I guess it's kind of a little bit of, you're sending mixed messages. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying WWAW are like, believe this is real for a minute, but don't in real life. And I also, to consider, there's no screen. These are people that you can now interact with. These are people that hear you. So it's one thing to watch WrestleMania on TV. It's another one to be, right there ringside and know that someone can hear you. They can hear your frustration. They can hear when you're upset with them. It's kind of like customer service. It's like people aren't mad at you. They're mad at the company. If it's really about frustration, they're not mad at you. They don't know you, but they are upset about what's happening. But they know you're there. There's no screen. I can't yell at Tony Stark, through an Avengers movie, and he'll respond back to me about my frustrations. Now, we have seen where people do that to wrestlers, which I think is disgusting and terrible, where they'll, yell at them, racial remarks, throw things at them because they know that they can respond. And if you get them mad enough, or they may shoot a look your way, or positively, you'd say, I fucking love you, Sasha Banks, and Sasha turns around and looks at you and smiles or whatever. It's it's hard to suspend your disbelief at that point when that person is they're playing that character and they're interacting with you in real time.
Yeah. And I understand that. And to me, it's similar to Broadway.
Yeah.
You're standing there in front and you're interacting, and yeah, sure, the etiquette says be quiet and just enjoy the show, clap when the time comes to clap. But Danny Zuko isn't Danny Zuko. That's Todd, or whatever his name is, or that's him. So yeah, they may break the fourth wall every now and then. It's usually faux pas, but just because they broke the fourth wall to look at you and kind of give you a nod because somebody said something, or maybe they're like somebody was being rude and they like broke character for a second, say shut up, and then go right back to their character. That doesn't mean you can't suspend your belief. Like,
Right.
or that like when the curtain goes down and people do their bow, they're like, man, I really hate that Kaneki guy getting that girl pregnant and blah 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 blah. He seems like a scumbag and blah blah. And they're like, that's not Kaneki. That character's done now. That actor's got to go do something else. And so wrestling is different because once again it goes forever, and you have to pitch the next, or sorry, you have to work the next angle. You have to make money and sell these matches.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird the frenzy that people get into outside of wrestling on like social media, or like mailing people letters to their houses or sending people death threats and things like that. It's like, weirdos. You're a bunch of weirdos. Like, seriously, like, and I know people are calling all wrestling fans weirdos, but I'm not. But like, there are people that like, you can't stop and realize this is a show. I'm basically doing puppet theater with you, and you're getting mad at this sock puppet and you're sending it death threats when it's at home. You know what I mean? It's silly. It's anyway.
Like, I think the issue with that is like, I think we can all agree that when we were young, when we were kids watching wrestling, I think most of us thought everything was real. Like, we thought these characters were who they actually were portraying on TV. So now as adults, we still kind of look to kind of blend reality in with wrestling, and we want to kind of get that youthful feeling, you know, and kind of get that same feeling back when we were younger and kind of like get into it. And we want it to be real, or want it to feel as real as possible, because you know, that was the excitement of, you know, watching wrestling when we were kids, because we didn't know. We really thought, you know, Stone Cold and The Rock really hated each other's guts and all that kind of stuff. So some people kind of just take it a little too far and actually carry over, you know, their, you know, fandom and just really get into the kayfabe. And you would be surprised, maybe or maybe not, but like, because I've met Alexa Bliss twice, and 90% of the time on TV, she's the bad guy. But when I've met her twice, she's one of the sweetest people in the world. And when I tell people that, they always seem to be surprised. Like, she's really nice. Like, yeah, that's not who she is, you know, in real life, you know. And people just, you know, like I said, they take it a little too seriously. And like, I look at wrestling as an escape from reality. You know, it's my happy place. You know, it makes me feel young again. But then I know these wrestlers, they're just playing a character. And a lot of people, they know that, but then they just don't. But then they just like, I think it's like more of a kayfabe thing. You know, sometimes they just like to act like they're a part of the show too, I guess. And they get into it on Twitter and social media and just take things too far. And then when it comes to like the death threats and sending wrestlers letters and stuff like that, that's just something wrong with you. I have because like, that's taking things way, like, you must really think that these people are assholes for you to do that. Like, it just makes no sense why you would take it that far, and unless you really had that mentality.
Yeah, I think I just wish people were mature enough to get built into a frenzy for the show, and then calm down and realize when the last bell's rung and when the lights are out, you're walking to your car like, oh man, that was a great experience. I'm gonna carry on about my life and not be a dick. So like, but that's hard in this industry because the industry is basically built on a lie, and so it's built on the lie like, oh yeah, it's real, it's totally real. Go spend all your money, maybe make some bets. Oh, you think this guy's gonna win? Go ahead, I'll take those odds. I'm just gonna change the outcome later. I mean, it's all carny, built on a lie that slowly morphed into a legitimate entertainment. And so like, do you accept that old lifestyle of like keeping the lie, or do you just full on embrace the fact that this is now $1 billion industry, the same as any other entertainment? Because if it was real, the cops would be called by now, right? It seems silly. It's like, oh yeah, all these wrestlers got superpowers, but this guy over here played a misogynist, so he must be a misogynist in real life. Does that mean the Undertaker's really a fucking like grave digger with superpowers? And so like people need, my thing is like people just need to be mature enough to not get too far into their own LARPing and buying into their own character. And same with fans to realize this is a show. Stop going crazy. Buy the stuff because you like this character. If you like Darth Vader, you still have all those action figures, right? You like that guy, but he's the bad guy, right? So why can't you do the same? Buy Seth Rollins' shirt, the Monday Night Messiah. He's the bad guy, but damn it, he's nailing that character, right? He's a great wrestler. Why can't you support him? You know what I mean? So it's weird, and like I'll have wrestlers who will listen to this if and they'll argue with me and stuff like that about the philosophy of wrestling. But it just seems like it seems like people just forget that it's a show, and it's I don't know. I'm rambling again. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I feel like you answered your own question. I think it's built on a lie, and and I can only imagine being like a company like AEW or WWE and thinking, you know what, we are the monopoly right now, but like if we were really gonna sit here and truly take a stand on, hey, don't be assholes to these people. These are real people. These are not your characters. Our business is going to ultimately flatline because of the exact, point that you made that is built on a lie that everything's real. While it's on TV, while you're there, until the show ends, I think they just expect people to know that. So therein lies the problem.
Yep.
But I think the other question, I guess, since we're on wrestling, I might as well ask it. But let's just imagine, if you will, gentlemen, if like COVID was no longer a thing right now. Matt, you were able to just like, I was able to say to you, Matt, here's $10 billion. Take it. I don't want it. It's yours. Do what you want with it. You can go wrestle. And you can go to any company you want to, wrestle anybody you want to, and you have full say over your storyline and your creative. What would you do?
I would go buy an island. You never see me again.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
There you go.
as far as the industry, you wouldn't ever see me again because I would want to make my own show.
Oh, nice.
And so the philosophy I always had is like, if you are behind the scenes working on a show, you should not be a character on the show. It's a conflict of interest. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many shows I've worked at where the booker's wife was the champion, or the booker themselves were the champion, or the booker's husband was the champion. It's like, it's always something like that. And we're like, hey man, are you just writing this show to make yourself feel good? Because if that's the case, we can go out into a field, we can go LARP for a little bit, and you could pretend to be the almighty mage, and we could all save ourselves a little bit of money and hassle. Right. But like, if you want to put on a show, I don't want to see Tom Cruise direct, write, produce, and star. That's selfish, dude. Like,
yeah,
that's somebody else. But also, if I had that much money, I would try to change the industry to appease my beliefs and likes, to where I would do it just like Hollywood. I would be like, I'm going to cast Chris Jericho in this part. I'm not hiring Chris Jericho to be Chris Jericho, or his real name, which isn't, or whatever his real name is. I'm casting that person to play this part. Enjoy it. I don't want you to be Matt Palmer. I want you to be Roosevelt, this overly sexualized Madonna-like character, or narcissist character. Well, that's not me. Why do I have to make this product and be the same character for the next however many years to go and try to fill the role in each place? Because all these independent shows would be like, I don't need that character. I already got something similar. I'm not going to get two. Well, I'm better at it. Doesn't matter. I already got the damn guy. So I would just start casting like you would Hollywood. I'm going to cast John Cena as this character. I'm going to cast Mark Calloway as this character. And make it public. Let them know. And I would turn it into essentially kind of like Lucha Underground in a way. to where it would feel like it's a show. It would feel like, yeah, you get to be there live and you get to do your stuff. You get to yell and throw your wad paper and stuff like that, but it's presented like a show. You don't have to be on in character 24/7. Screw that. And I also make them sign clauses to where they didn't have any social media, because that's simply like the death of most wrestling and most stuff, is because everything becomes insider. And it's like, I don't want to know the spoilers to these blockbuster movies. Just let me see them, man. Stop shoving all this clickbait in my face and stop spoiler alerting me to all this stuff. Such and such is coming back to Royal Rumble. It's like, Edge, you ruined Edge's surprise with all these dirt sheets things. And then like all that kind of stuff is like, that guy came back after 9 years. The simple pain that I've had with my health problems just don't even come close to what that guy had. Mm-hmm. And people ruined it. And I think that's a lot of social media and people being able to talk too much. Yeah. Interviews. So that would be another clause. It'd be like, you don't have social media. They don't need to have access to you. It's oversaturated market anyway. You think people are going to go out there and buy a ton of shirts because you're constantly shoving it on your social media feed, but like, they're going to buy the shirt because they want it, not because you're advertising it constantly.
Exactly.
But that's my thing. And maybe that means I'll be bankrupt in 6 months or something like that after this $10 million or $10 billion. Well, that's what I would do with it. And I also have off seasons too. I don't see the reason trying to compete with other billion-dollar industries that are seasonal. Like, why would I want to compete with the NBA?
Money.
Yeah, it's money, but like at the same time, it's like, why am I going up directly against Monday Night Football? Well, because people want to watch us. But why can't you do both, man? Let them go watch Monday Night Football and you change your hours over here. Why can't you compete with the guest show instead?
Right. I mean, and for me, that's like, God, I could go on a tangent about it. I'm not, because I already done it a billion times. But that was the one thing that really kind of upset me a little bit about a lot of companies. Even with wrestling, AEW and WWE are not innocent in this. Of like, we had this pandemic come on, but it was like, we have to contribute to the war. We have, it's money. It's just money, and it's like putting people's health, on the line, because we need to basically make money and feed the social media war. And I felt like it was pretty irresponsible for. Yeah. And I think it's irresponsible for any company to do it. Like, the health of your people come first. If I had $1 billion and could run a company, like, your health comes first, because it doesn't matter how good a product I have if I don't have good people, healthy people. My product is worthless, and social media will only mirror that when stuff comes out that these people haven't worked to death. And you see it in the video game industry where crunch time comes around, and social media has made it very clear that like people can go out and be like, hey, so Rockstar basically made me work in this game forever, and now I'm like, my brain is fried because of it. Yeah. So I totally get that. I totally get the one, not having social media, but also having the off season of just being like, take a break. If our product is good, people will come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe it's an idea of like 2 separate shows under the same banner of like, this is the off-season show and this is the on-season show. Right. Yeah, you think like that doesn't make any sense, but like, if my hardest months on my business are February through August or something like that, rather than like drive these guys into the ground, work them, burn the candle at both ends all year, why don't I know I'm going to take a loss on this. Why don't I just make some changes? I'll get these young kids, I'll get them their time, and then they can move up, rather than having them all go at the same time. You got Raw, you got SmackDown, you got NXT, you got all these other shows all running at the same time. Well, rather than having 12 hours of TV a week, why don't I have 6 hours of TV every week? But during those difficult months, I don't have to pay these guys $250,000 to $1 million to come out here and wrestle, when I could have these young guys who are still trying to cut their teeth and I can still give them a living wage that they can live with, but I'm not wasting $1 million and no one's watching because Monday Night Football is back on, or the NBA is back on, or hockey, or whatever.
Right.
And so that might be something to explore. But then again, it's hard to say. Those companies, they're billion-dollar companies, but that doesn't mean they have $1 billion under their mattress. That money's always working for them. So if it's not working, they don't have $1 billion. They're not cash rich. And so it's hard to say. So if you just stop the industry for a while, then people don't get paid. Those people on the injured list, they don't get paid. And so like now, not only are they injured, they're in the middle of a pandemic and they're starving. They don't get to go and work at a McDonald's because they're injured. They can't walk, or their arm's in a sling, or they got a broken neck. And so when people always give WWE grief about that, I can relate, I can understand, I can empathize. But at the same time, I also look at they got these dozens of people on the injured list, and they're trying to take care of them. My wife's a prime example of that and stuff like that. So like the business has to keep going. Otherwise, these people are in a bad spot too. They're trying to take care of their own in a way, and they can't take care of their own by just giving them money because they don't have that money. It has to keep making money for itself. And so it's so hard trying to talk about the philosophy of wrestling and how to run a business during this time, because it's easy to see people or companies as evil because they're doing something that's against your ideological belief. But then you see why they're doing it, and they're trying not to lose their own business. They're trying to keep their money. It's capitalism, but they're also taking care of others. Like, do you want to see all those people on the injured reserve just get fired?
Yeah.
Sorry, we can't afford to pay you. Now you were this great character, and now you're homeless. You know what I mean? And so it's hard, and WWE always has that issue that we all want to hate WWE because they're the best, right? And so like there's always this like thing in our head that we want to hate them, and maybe it's envy, maybe it's greed, maybe it's whatever. But at the same time, they're still trying to take care of their people, and so it's hard. It's hard to see the nuance in all of it, and not just lump them in. It was like, they're spreading COVID. They're doing. It's like their intentions could be good, could be bad. It's hard to say.
You don't know what's going on.
It's a weird time, and like it's hard to just lump people in these categories of good and evil. It sucks. And that's the wrestling industry. It's a gig market. Do we need wrestling? No, not necessarily. But when you're sitting at home learning who you are essentially in private, all you have is maybe you have your essential job. You can't get to see your family and friends. Like you guys are the first people I've talked to in a long time that wasn't my wife in months. And so you need that escape. It's selfish, but humans are inherently selfish.
Right.
And so, like you need something that's going to distract you from the fact that I am not a great human being. I'm just a regular person, and I have all my own faults. And you start hating yourself. It's like, I need something to distract me. I'm not meant to just be sitting at home. I'm a creator. I am an artist. I want to go out there and do stuff. Or maybe I'm just a worker. Maybe I just like working. I have to feel like I'm contributing. And so this is just a shitty time. It's like everyone's the victim, and you want to just blame somebody, but there's nothing to swing at. You know what I mean? Like it's not like this guy. It's not like it's this guy's the evil person running the country. Let's go beat his ass. Or this guy over here is robbing people, and let's go beat his ass. It's something you can't hit. It's something that you can't swing at, and you just have to deal with it. And it sucks because you got 367 million Americans that all have their own way of dealing with it. But no one has any empathy anymore. And it sucks. It just sucks.
No, and you're absolutely right.
And like the thing that you were like kind of talking about, like how like WWE, like fans are hating on WWE and all this kind of stuff, and with them still like going and continuing to show, like you said, they not only are they trying to keep themselves on afloat, but they do need to pay and take care of their employees as well. And you know, a lot of people gave them heat for being deemed essential, an essential business. Do we need to watch wrestling to live? No. But it's also it's like that beacon of hope for people who are home who can't do anything. We can still tune into Raw, and it still kind of gives us that, hey, like everything's okay kind of feeling. Do we know what they're doing behind the scenes as precautions? No. And that's the thing, is a lot of people are, you know, they don't know that. And now that some names have been released of people testing positive, who's this? We don't know what, you know, these wrestlers are doing outside of the business. You know, are they being safe outside of the company and all that kind of stuff? So can you really blame WWE for that? You know, if they're doing everything they can, you know, in the arena to take care of everyone, you know, if the Undertaker leaves Monday Night Raw, goes out to the grocery store and starts licking the poles or something like that. I'm just giving you a weird example. Then and then he goes to, you know, tapings the next day and, you know, starts interacting with, you know, other wrestlers, and that's kind of him not taking the proper precautions. So I mean, it's really tough at the end of the day, because I get people's mindset, like, you know, COVID-19, this is serious, you know, unless it's, you know, really, really essential to really look after everyone. But like, they technically are, because they're trying to, you know, keep people getting paid, and because we all need money, we all have bills, we need to, you know, food and all that kind of stuff. So it's at the end of the day, it's a battle. It's going to go both ways.
Yeah, and this isn't. I hope my thought. I'm just kind of just speaking and thinking out loud with you, but like I hope my thoughts aren't like, oh, he hates WWE or he's defending WWE, or I'm not doing anything. I don't know, and it's a scary time. Like our all of our fates are tied now to each other, and so we're scared, and we want to lump into our own groups and be like, oh, this is the problem, we got to fix it, and this is the problem, we got to fix this. Oh no, you can't do that because this problem's going to come up down the line. It's like we're a bunch of scared nobodies just trying to survive, and some of us want to entertain. That's our goal. We want to entertain people. Other people, they want to be entertained, but they don't want to be in front of people. That's not their life's dream. And so I'm 34 years old. I know I'm nearing the end of my wrestling career. And I know that this COVID thing it's going to last however long it's going to last, if not forever. We don't know if there's a cure or nothing like that. We have no clue. And so I literally may have to retire before I'm ever allowed to wrestle in front of a large group again. That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And like, imagine if you never had to go to work again. Not that like, oh, great, I don't have to work, I can be successful. It's that you run the risk of your entire life falling apart out of nowhere. And you want to blame all these people, but like, what's blaming them going to do? You're still going to be sick. You're potentially homeless. You're starving. It sucks. And so like people are just trying to fight this invisible thing the best they can while still trying to carry on their lives and fulfill what they feel like is the meaning of their life. I'm watching reaction videos on YouTube now just so I can remember what it feels like for people to be like, or like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like I have to do that because I am an entertainer, and I don't get that a lot when I'm wrestling. I don't get the opportunity to do that as frequently as I like, but now I don't get to do it at all. That's an emptiness inside of you that like, this is my destiny, this is my goal, this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my life. And it already has a time limit. Now you add on a sickness, and you're sitting there going like, I'll never get to make somebody smile again. There's a potential I'll never get to make somebody stop and forget that this life sucks sometimes. You know? And so like, that's the way it is with everyone, with whatever industry or whatever like destiny they feel like they are about to accomplish, or they should have been accomplishing, but they can't because they got to sit at home because they don't want to die, or they don't want to get sick. They don't want to like kill off grandpa, you know? It's just, sorry, it got sad and it got stuff.
No, it is sad. It's definitely something to think about. And I can only imagine really how you feel having to process all that. I mean,
Yeah. But, you know, I'm sure somebody will shit on me on social media for having these thoughts. So
No, you will not. I will literally not allow anyone to do that to you. I will fight everybody.
Yeah, we have a pretty positive fan base. Like, we don't have a lot of negative people who really listen to the show, from my knowledge. So I think you'll be fine.
Good. That's nice.
Yeah, and like we really do want to try and make with this podcast, obviously, your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth, JT's truth is his truth. So it's always good to just kind of you don't have to worry about whether or not you feel like you're going to be defending WWE or shitting on WWE or shitting on AEW or defending AEW. Like, it's really all about perspective. And if people can't understand that, I mean, this probably isn't the best podcast for them. At least that's kind of like our philosophy. I mean, at least it's mine. Like, I am who I am. I'm a regular ass girl. I live life, and my moral compass has led me to believe something. And if it's different than yours, I mean, that's okay. And we can continue to have discussions like that. And I think that's what makes the podcast fun. And
yeah,
hopefully it was fun for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a very fun episode, honestly. Like, I felt like I learned a lot, like what Matt was just saying about kind of like how scary this is for him as a wrestler, not knowing what the future is going to be. Like, that's things I didn't even really think about. So I feel like that will definitely give a lot of the listeners like a perspective on just like how like this is not just affecting the industry, but the actual wrestlers,
Yeah.
So I think this was a very good educational episode, and obviously we geeked out and talked about Star Wars, Game of Thrones. So that was I love like
fun too.
go off topic and just kind of start talking about just random stuff. I think it's fun because it also allows the listeners, the fans, supporters, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it allows them to really learn and get into the head of the actual like wrestler and outside of wrestling, because I love learning about my favorite wrestlers and what they actually like and what they're into outside of the business. I mean, that's just me. It's fun to relate to the wrestlers and just kind of seeing, hey, like you said, y'all are people too. Like, you all doing like the same stuff as us, so it's always fun learning that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. I always like the boundaries. Like, I love my dad, but he's got his whole life. I don't know everything about him, and so it's like he's my dad. I just love him. But he's also not going to tell me everything about his life because I don't need to. And so like I like that part. Like, I like being able to talk to you. I like to get in touch with you guys on a human level and talk to each other rather than like oh, I'm this haughty, holier than thou wrestler celebrity. And so like this is enjoyable, these kinds of interactions, rather than like the usual hate that you get, or the people that like try to hold you up to this weird pedestal. It's like, I'm not better than you. I'm just a person, man. I'm just trying to make it out here.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more with you.
All I want to do is collect my $30 and make you smile or hate. That's all I want to do for 2 hours. Then I want to go home and see my wife and family. That's all I want to do.
It seems like you're living the dream. You're living your dream. That's really all that matters.
Yeah, just trying to be at peace with yourself is all anyone could try to achieve. Yeah.
Right.
All right, guys. I have about 15 minutes before I have to do the stream.
True. So we're going to let you go.
We will let you go. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today here on the show at O-Face Wrestling. And Bree, this was your first time co-hosting with me with another wrestler. So
was it?
Yeah.
Cool. I feel honored. Thank you.
No, I like how cool is that to have Matt as like the first like.
I don't
make it so.
That's the thing.
It's cool to me. It's cool to me.
I know.
That's my truth. So.
But I appreciate.
Yeah, no, it's been nothing but a pleasure. Really, it has. It feels like I made like another friend. That's really how it feels. Like, it really didn't feel like I was talking, with holier than thou wrestler. It really just felt like we were just having a conversation as friends, and that's really like my favorite type of interaction with anybody. So.
Yeah, I agree.
I appreciate it.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
So to end the show, Matt, did you want to share your social media real quick?
So my Instagram is Palmer is Lost. I am deleting my Twitter the next couple days just because I can see why most major religions see gossiping as a sin, and that's just like, okay, this is getting a little out of hand. It's nothing but just hate and just, and it's like, mental health wise, I got to back up. I can't keep looking at my phone every 10 minutes. I'm addicted to it. I got to stop. I'll post cute pictures of my cats and dumb things on Instagram, and I'll do that. I have a Facebook, but I'm reserving that just for people who know me as a person rather than my character. And because I'll say something stupid and sarcastic that everyone else will be like, "Oh, Matt, you funny person." And then other people think I'm being serious. It's like, "Oh, no, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant." I don't want to have to apologize. So you can find me as Palmer is Lost on Instagram. Ember Moon has her Twitch where I show up on occasion. It's kind of in the background is like this lost husband is like, "Hey, what's this button?" And I ruin their
There
stream.
goes the name.
I don't exactly remember. I was trying to look it up earlier, but I didn't want to be rude, constantly looking down at my phone. But it's Ember Moon on Twitch.
We follow her.
Yeah, I get the notifications every time she streams.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Good. It's usually just me yelling in the background. That's all it is. But yeah, that's where you can get me outside of real life.
All right, y'all. So make sure you follow Matt on Instagram, and then also make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you all for tuning in today. And then one last thank you to you, Matt, for joining us today on O-Face Wrestling.
I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Matt.
Thank you guys.
No problem. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.